But let's go back to the dot-com bubble because, I mean, that's we're now going back almost 22 years. Back then, they were saying a safe withdrawal rate was 6%. Some people said a safe withdrawal rate was 7%. You'd experienced multiple years in a row of double-digit returns in the market, 5 years in a row. And people thought that it was different, right? The brick and mortars was dead. It's all tech. It's all dot-coms. It's all and the dynamics they thought had changed. My question to you is, have you met anyone or did you meet anyone in that period of time that had retired either in the late 90s or right at the beginning of 2000 that didn't have a plan, that didn't have a good withdrawal strategy, that got greedy and wound up having to go back to work because their plan failed?
Yes, I've had that experience. Sadly,
I know, and I have too.
Yeah,
and I met far more than one, and more than a handful over that period of 2003, 2004, 2005, where people did what you said, and that is just wait.
Yeah,
it'll come back. Well, again, like if you're 25 years old, it doesn't matter.
With that dot-com bubble, and it's indelibly set in my mind, if you will, 1995 through the end of 1999, an incredible period of time of growth, and you're absolutely right. The S&P 500 did well, but the NASDAQ 100 was out of sight.
Oh, my gosh, yeah.
And that's why they called it when we went over into 2000 and we start the beginning of the new century, new decade, new year, Y2K, all that stuff. And now we see an implosion. So now we see the market going down. And in a period of time of 3 years, the market lost 46.5% of its value.
And it was a slow bleed.
Yeah,
it wasn't the quick drop that we saw in.
Yeah, it was 10%, 13%, 23%, and some change.
Yeah. And so it was a really slow bleed. And that's the S&P. The NASDAQ over that same period of time lost 70%.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
And so there were a lot of people that either had to postpone their desired retirement date,
right,
because they didn't pay attention. Mm-hmm. They did the buy and hold strategy, mm-hmm. or they retired and didn't understand that things were different in retirement, and they wound up having to go back to work, or they wound up having a far smaller income stream in retirement than what they had desired, drastically then affecting. But we saw the same thing occur in 2008, and a lot of that was not only in the stock market, that was also in the real estate market as well. And of course, those aren't people that are clients of ours. Those were people that didn't have an advisor, or if they did have an advisor, that advisor subscribed to the idea that it's just buy and hold. Well, I call that buy, hold, and hope.
Yeah.
Right? And let's just hope it works.
That's a good phrase. Yeah, when going back to the dot-com bubble with the 46.5% drop that I'm referencing with the S&P 500 returns, and then you look at what happened in the next years. It was positive, okay? But what I want you to know is it took at that time almost 3 years to get back the losses that they experienced. Now, even though the market's starting to come back, if you're still taking distributions, yes, you're getting some improvement, but the distribution is still draining the account, and it's such a critical factor. If you go back to the Great Recession, which everybody remembers because the phrase was coined, my 401 turned into a 201, and you look at what happened with that, it took another series of years to get back. In fact, it was almost 3.5 years for it to get back to even after the losses that people experienced at that time. That is risk.
Well, and if somebody had retired in 2000 and they had a 60-40 portfolio and all they did was take 5% per year and they tried to keep up with inflation, by the time they ran to about 2010, 2011, they're within a couple of years of running out of money. And there's another article that we'll have in the show notes written by one of our certified financial planners, Jason Newcomer. There's also a video that we did on that you can check out, and we'll have that in the link in the show notes as well. And it's called Retiring at Market Highs. Mm-hmm. And so it's critical, really, that people understand those people that are 5 years out from retirement right now, those people that are already retired right now, you need to be really paying attention to the statistical data that we're seeing today and how it could impact your ability to, get to retirement and then have the lifestyle that you want through retirement. That's really what it's all about.
That is an outstanding program, and I hope people take advantage and take a look at it, because what you and Jason uncovered for everybody to understand is what I'm talking about here, and that is the serious consequences of the sequence of returns. But there's two factors that are left out of that as well.
Right. Inflation is a big factor, and we actually dive in deep on inflation on that program as well.
Yeah, and that's again, that's another thing we have to contend with. And again, if you're not doing a comprehensive financial plan, Dean, where you're taking all these variables into consideration, you are flying blind. You're just hoping, as you stated earlier, that the results will turn around and I'll get another 10 years of bull market and I'll be happy again and I'll recover the losses that I might have already experienced.
Yeah, no, and there's a time to be safe, and there's a time to be more aggressive. And nobody, I don't care who it is going to be able to say, this is the time that you need to be safe, and they're going to be exactly right. And then the next day, the market starts to fall apart. Nobody's going to be able to say, this is the time that it's time to be aggressive, and you're right at the bottom of the market. But if you can cut off the middle parts of that bud, and you control the drawdown, and then you have a strategy and a scenario that can tell you this is when it's time to deploy more back into the markets and take off some of the hedging strategies, and that you can smooth those returns out. And then following the other piece of that as well, you can also really get that dynamic approach and keep enough money safe that what's fluctuating isn't changing your life.
Yeah. Harvest the gains when they're there. Be conservative when we go through the rough patches. Understand that there's alternatives for us to be able to consider, and stay with the plan.
Starting your route to retirement.